legends, g'day superstars, it's Peps, it's Lace Out, and it's the round 4 review of a cracking, one of the best weekends of football that has hit the shores, I'd say this season and probably over the last couple of seasons. But I'm your host, Christopher Pepper, the 377-game superstar of the East Keilor Football Club, to take you through an epic round of the greatest game in the world. This is Lace Out. It's how you want your footy, and it is the number one non-club affiliated podcast this side of the Westgate Bridge. Thank you for joining me again. Those who are joining me live on the chat, those who are joining me live on the podcast channels, those who are listening to me in the car on the way to work, whilst you're working, hey, wherever you are right now, thank you for joining me. We do this because we love footy and we love you too. Pretty big weekend of football. It is still a bit raw. The J-Dog, for the ones who missed us last week, Jamie the J-Dog Wallis is not continuing with the show. Just to family commitments and work commitments. It's just taking him a little bit further than he can too. But we love the big fella, and he's going to be on in the near future, joining us for future rounds as well. But for those who are joining us, the Roo Boy's on. He's excited. Good to see the Good Friday game finally getting a crowd. Is Carlton and North the way to go into the future? We'll have a look at that game. We'll have a look at all the games over the weekend. The Magnets are going to be back. We've got the ladder. We've got the scoreboard. We've got a brand new little segment relating to somebody we're just going to keep an eye out towards the draft, and I'll go into that a little bit further. We're going to analyse the games. We're going to pick it apart, and it's going to be a cracking episode for everybody to get on board. So if you're watching me live, get on the chat, ask me questions. Even if you're not listening to this live and you've got it in the car or whatever, throw a message on the Facebook page. Because you know what? If you ask it, I will answer it. It's as simple as that. Righty-o. Hey, Gather Round is kicking off this week, so Tipped Out will be back to give the tips for every single game in South Australia this weekend. It is going to be unique. It is going to be interesting, and it's going to be one of those things that I think will stick around for a long time. Will it be in South Australia every year? We're not too sure. We'll see what happens. But I know Big Jill McLaughlin is excited for it. Everyone's excited for it. And there's going to be some big games as well too that we'll talk about a little bit later on when we look at 1 week at a time. All righty. Let's get stuck into it straight away. The first thing that we always look into is going to be the ladder. Let's have a look at the ladder from As It Speaks, round 4 right away. All right. Now have a look at that. Sitting on top of the ladder, food chain. Up with the Angels, it is the St Kilda Football Club. 4 games, 4 wins, 160.4%. A beautiful game on the weekend. Sitting nice and high. Ross the Boss has brought a new game style. You play my defensive way. You can be free when you run, and it's working for them perfectly. We've also got the ladder. We've got Carlton sitting in second position on 14 points, still undefeated at 114.2%. Then we've got 3 teams on 12. The D's, Essendon and Collingwood after their loss against Brisbane on the weekend. Sydney Swans, Adelaide and Brisbane make up the final 8 due on percentage. And then we've got North Melbourne have dropped out. Port Adelaide. Wow, we're going to have a chat about that game. Probably the greatest victory or the greatest after the game moment I would probably have seen since 2011 Derby West Coast versus Fremantle, where Hayden Ballantyne had that shot after the siren and hit the post. They were up and they were down in the matter of moments. Western Bulldogs had a great win, like I mentioned a moment ago. Then we've got Richmond in 12th. Geelong cracking half of football, sitting on their first win of the year on 4 points. Fremantle, GWS, West Coast, Gold Coast, and down at the bottom, languishing, is the Hawthorn Football Club. I know there's going to be, Tommy Roker's a little bit upset about the Gold Coast Suns. He is flaming on the chat right now. Rude Boy's going berserk at him. It is going to be an absolute corker of a night, a corker of a podcast. So I think it's time to get straight into it, and it's time to spin the magnets. Great to see Craigie Wessels all the way from the US of A joining me for another episode. And also, I mentioned to you last week, Jamie's no longer with the show, and so we can't replace him. But I would love for anybody, if you want to be part of the show, if you want to join me as a guest host 1 week, drop me in a message in the Facebook chat and I'll get back to you. You can email me. All the details are on our Facebook page or in the show notes. And I know a number of people who listen to us regularly since we've started have said, hey, I wouldn't mind having a crack. So don't be surprised if you hear some of the voices for the names that we've been speaking about over the years, whether they're in Australia or overseas. All right. Let's go and spin some magnets, I reckon. So let's go and have a look at, I want to focus on the dragged first of all, because there was a number of them to come out of the weekend. So I'm going to big shout out to Big Ron. Are you there, big buddy? All right, well, he started off half. He just forgot half of his shout out there. So let's go again. All right, let's get into it. First and foremost, we know the Gather Round is kicking off this weekend, and it is going to be a bumper weekend of footy. But I'll tell you what, if you were the AFL, if you were looking at it right now and going, hey, you know what, let's do Gather Round, and I've got a really good idea. How about if we go ahead and play all the games in Adelaide? Right, I reckon that's a great idea. And then what I also reckon that we do is I reckon a game that will make a little bit of a difference, but not too much of a difference right now, would be let's go and play Collingwood versus St Kilda. I reckon that'd be a pretty good week. Now, unfortunately, it's going to be a top of the ladder food chain type of game. And it's going to be around about 25,000 plus people are going to miss out from going to a game where virtually teams 1 and 2 on the ladder are going to be the undefeated versus just recently lost a game. It's a real shame. Could you imagine this game at the MCG? Even down at Marvel Stadium, that place would have been absolutely rocking. So I'm dragging just because of fate that game is not going to be played in front of 85,000 St Kilda and Collingwood Ferals at the MCG. But it's going to be a belter of a game this week. I still don't know who I'm going to go with, but we'll get into that potentially later in the episode. All right. Another one I want to drag, but I'm not going to be dragging him in a bad way. I'm dragging him because I just don't like to see it. And it's simply this. Paddy McCartan. Now, he's gone down with another concussion. Now, at the time, I saw this live. And when he didn't move, I had to rewind the tape to see, was that it? It was almost an innocuous fall over and knock his head on the ground. There was hardly anything in it. But just with his history of concussions, will this be the last time we see him on an AFL football field? Now, I know it's his decision to make, but if the medical people say that he's okay to play, should the AFL step in and say, listen, no, from a OH&S perspective, we can't let you continue. I don't know how this one's going to go, but when you see something like that happen so innocuous and it's caused a concussion, I don't think we can have him back. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful manner. His health is more important than anything. Now, a couple of people have already written, so, hey, listen, it would have been better if you wore a helmet or a head guard. Honestly, it doesn't make that much of a difference. I used to wear a helmet when I played footy for many years. You still feel the knocks. You'd almost have to run around with bubble wrap around your head to be able to sustain it. So I don't think it would have made much of a difference. So hopefully we don't see the last of him, because I really appreciate what he's done, coming back after so long, getting back in, going through the rookies, going through the VFL, getting on a list, playing football with his brother, and both of them have gone down wearing a helmet. All right, Sam Doherty. Unfortunately, Sam Doherty, with everything that he's had, cancer, etc., you think that he just gets over it. He's been playing great footy for the last year and a bit, and he has to go in for more surgery as well too. So I just don't, it's just a shame when you really see the good quality team players and guys that can play great football, just unfortunately due to the way it is, having to go in for surgery. It just kind of sucks, because I love everything that he brings to the game, everything he brings to the team, but more importantly, everything he brings to football itself too. All right. And I'm going to drag one more just because you know what I'm like with the social media side of things. Jack Crisp, just cause. But I'm also going to be dragging the absolute prick, nuffy, numbskull that leaked it. This was stuff from years ago, so it wasn't recent. And that's just absolutely poor form. So go and have a good hard look at yourself in the mirror, you putz. because you put a guy through something that, not even his family, not even his wife had to experience. It happened years ago. Putrid. Don't like it. Social media, absolutely tripe. Okay. Now, all the nuffies on the chat right now getting stuck into me because I have worn a helmet when I played footy. Well, I can tell you now, none of you ever got a hard ball in your life, and so you have no right to criticise me, all right? I didn't get this nose hanging out on the wind like you, Tommy Roker, or the Roo Boy or Buzz. I was out there, bottom of the packs, feeding it out too. So I wore a helmet because I was a hard footballer, simply the way it is, all right? So if you don't like it, don't tune in. Now, please tune in because we love you. All right. I want to give some votes. So it's time for some 3 votes. Over to you, Mr. Demetrio. All right. First, I mentioned it quite briefly in the intro. How good was the end to the Port Adelaide, Sydney game? Well, I saw the end of that game. I didn't see it live. And when I looked at the replay, I could not believe what happened. He absolutely flushed that. And about 20 metres out, it looked like it was going through mid-post high. And then it absolutely died. Now, a few people have said who were at the stadium, it was almost like a gust of wind came in and just made it drop. But if I had to drag someone out of this, it would have to be Buddy Franklin not protecting Aaliyah from going near the ball, and Callum Mills running off the line, premature celebrating, and then the ball dropped. If he'd stayed there, he would have been a chance to block it. So, Aaliyah, congratulations. That was an amazing effort to think about what you need to do. And for all the Port Adelaide people, especially Jamie Wallis, who saw that, I'm considering, or I reckon you would have gone through a fair bit of this watching that happen. All right. The Cats. How good was their second half against the Hawks? Now, were they back to their 2021 best? I'd say that they were. I think it was brilliant. I will say, though, the Hawks, that first half of that game, I thought the Hawks had them. It was a belter of a first half. And then it's one of those things, you go and do some stuff around the house, housework, you take the kids out for a bit, come back in. And what happened? My goodness gracious, they've been absolutely slaughtered by 82 points. And if you have a look at that third quarter, it is one of the most blistering third quarters we have seen in a long, long time. Now, are the Cats back? Too hard to look at. I will say one thing, though. I think they might, out of all the 9 lives, I know there's been a few of them this year, I think that might be their last life. If they do that again this week, maybe they're back. But they have to continue to play great football. And there's one bloke who's playing for them, which I'll get to very, very soon, who is, in my humble opinion, the number 1 player in the league. He has to be. He has to be the way that he's going about his football right now, because he was the only one keeping him in a game a number of weeks ago, and he's the only one that kept him in until halftime, and then we saw what he did after that. So we know who we're talking about. And last but not least, it was actually good to see. I went and watched the Melbourne West Coast game. Not focusing on the D's on this one, but the Eagles had no right to do what they did. They had 10 changes from the week before, and to come out and have a really hard crack at the D's for around 2.5 quarters was exceptional. And I think they've got a bit of a future there at West Coast. I think just Simpson needs to pull the trigger and play the young kids. Because if you're expecting to get the stuff out of the old blokes, they're breaking down. You got to play these kids. Don't worry about it. The season's over for you guys. You might as well get games into them. Do what Hawthorn did. Get the games into the kids, because that will definitely play out over the next coming years. So there you go. We've spun the magnets. Who's been dragged? Who's got the votes? It's all clear now. Beautiful. Look at some of the things that are coming in off the chat. Loving what I'm seeing right now. Danger's cooked. Noah Anderson, they absolutely love it. Rude Boy's saying that maybe the horny Francis guy needs to have a few more ice baths. He would have had an ice bath probably at home. Maybe his mum tipping the ice into the bath. And a few others as well too. So keep coming in, because it is absolutely gorgeous what we're seeing. All right. Rising Star time. Let's have a look at the Rising Star. Now, at one stage tonight, we didn't even have the Rising Star announced until I reckon 30 minutes ago. So that is how fine the announcement is. And after this guy's game on the weekend, if you saw the highlights, he is an excitement machine. And I'm talking about St Kilda's Mitch Owens has been rewarded for his scintillating round 4 performance with the NAB AFL Rising Star nomination. It was every Saturday night as they bounced and trounced the Gold Coast Suns by 53 points. Now, the 19-year-old, he racked up 27 possessions. 19 of those were contested, as well as 2 goals and 7 score involvements against the Suns. He also then had to go in the racket times, recording 5 hit-ups to go up to 5 tackles and 5 marks. He was absolutely everywhere. Buzz would have been absolutely dreaming about this guy. And he also picked up 8 coaches' votes in the AFL-CA Champion Player of the Year. So to you, Mitch Owens, Rising Star, round 4, there is our nomination. All righty. Okay. You know what it's time for now? It's a segment, this is the segment that everybody says, when guys are kicking goals, when they get to 3, they want to go to 4. They want 4 to be 5. But they really want that 5 to become a 6. Because if it's a 6, that means it's time for bags. Woo! Oh, and was there bags? 3 bags on the weekend. So it all started on the Thursday night with the Brisbane Lions taking on the Collingwood Football Club. And I'll tell you what, old country road himself, Charlie Cameron, came out and kicked a beautiful 6 sausage rolls against a pretty solid Collingwood backline. But he was everywhere on that Thursday night. But when you think that was good, we had Good Friday. And that guy again, Charlie, not Charlie Brownlow, Charlie Curnow, came out and kicked 6 against a pretty good North Melbourne team as well too. So is he having a cracker start to the season? And he's continuing his 2021 Coleman medal form. And just when you think that was it, just when you thought that was going to be the pinnacle, because the big, the amazing Jeremy Cameron comes out against a pretty woeful Hawthorn after halftime and kicks not a 6, but it was 7 heaven for the great guy. Now, according to the great man Tommy Roker on the chat right now, he is saying that Jezza is on track for 98 goals. But as we're having this conversation, and I was chatting to him during the day, he asked me a question. Peps, if someone doesn't kick a ton in the home and away season, is it a tainted 100? Is it a tainted ton? And I say no. If you kick a ton in the season, full stop. Doesn't matter if you play finals, etc., because you had to kick those goals to play finals, and you got to kick those goals to win finals. But Tommy was a little bit, it should have an asterisk with it if they kicked 100 over the 100 goals. Now, he's saying also maybe because there's an extra round this year for 23 games, should there be an asterisk? Well, I don't think it's going to go back down to 22, to be honest, Tommy. I think it's going to be 23. I think it's even going to increase to 24 games when the 19th team comes in. And there is a reason behind that, which I can go into another time. But I think it's going to go to 24 games. So regardless how many games the season is, we could go back a couple of years ago and put a massive asterisk next to the 2019 year where everything was hit by COVID. Do we go back and say, well, that year, 2020, it was only 17 games that season. Do we then do it as well? Okay. So I know it's always been 22, but unfortunately things are going to change. It will be going to 23 rounds. I think it's going to go to 24 rounds, and you just play it for what it is. Times have changed. The game has changed. If you kick a ton, you kick a ton. And if you kick the most of the season during the home and away season, which everyone plays, you still got the column. But if you don't agree with me, leave a message in the chat. Leave a message on the Facebook page. All righty. Okay. Let's have a look at the scoreboard. Now, the scoreboard, as we spoke about last week, is just a bit of a review of the games. Now, I don't go into it too much, but I've just been having a little bit of a look at the statistical analysis when it gets into this as well too. So I wanted to have a bit of a chat about it. give you some thoughts and just give you some ideas on, well, who dominated and why they dominated as well. All right. So the first game that we had was the Thursday night. We know that Brisbane slaughtered Collingwood at the Gabba the Hutt in front of a crowd of 33,565. An absolute belter of a crowd. The place would have absolutely been rocking. And I don't think there would have been too many people who picked Collingwood to lose that game. But we saw what happened on the weekend. And, it was an absolutely sensational game. It was a brutal game as well, too, from Brisbane's perspective. The way that they decided to set themselves up, they actually put some time into Nick Dacos. I don't know why people haven't been doing that for the entire year. He still came out as the highest rated player on the ground as well, too. But here's the thing. I did watch that game, but I didn't notice him as much as the previous 3 weeks. Now, it might have been the fact that they lost, but there were other players who I thought had much better games, yet he was the one who seemed to have got the coaches' votes. I thought Joe Danaher was exceptional. His goal kicking is absolutely useless. We know that. But his ruck work, he was moving up the ground a lot more, and he was becoming an option as well, too. He had also 6 inside 50s, 9 contested possessions as well, too, and spent 81% of the time on the ground. So he was really, really good across and picked up 20 disposals of his own. Cam Rayner, beautiful move down forward. I don't know whether you can do it every single week, though. I think it's going to be one of those things that horses for courses. You love his big boot coming off the half-back line, but his 4 goals, he took a bit of a hanger in the first quarter as well, and he really set that win up for the Brisbane Lions and also came out as the 3rd highest ranked player on the game as well too. Scott Pendlebury, brilliant. Brody Mychek was awesome. He just does what he has to do every single week, whether it's making a presence. He came out also, you got to remember, he had, from a goal perspective as well, he also kicked 3 goals, had 5 shots as well. It was just one of those games. Brisbane were just brutal around the football, and they made Nick Dacos accountable for his actions as well too. So it was brilliant to see, awesome to see, and I really, really liked what I saw from the Brisbane Lions. Unfortunately, they don't do it when they come down to Melbourne, so it's going to be interesting to see whether they can continue that as well too. And even I like the way that Hipwood attacked the Packs as well too. Absolutely a complete turnaround from the week before when they were both pretty average against the Western Bulldogs. All right, the Good Friday game. There's not really much to talk about. It was the Twin Towers who destroyed North Melbourne. It was Curnow and it was also Harry Mackay. I thought Harry Mackay was magnificent on the weekend as well. I will say one thing, though. I think that he needs to move out the ground and leave that forward 50 to Charlie Curnow. But Charlie, is he just having an absolute stellar start to the season? Now, Drew Boy, I know you having a crack at the umpires, but the umpires weren't exactly the reason why you lost the game. It wasn't like the GWS game the week before, but absolutely sensational in terms of what we saw there. Davies Uniacke, magnificent out of the middle. Like, you can't ask for a guy to lead your team. And you saw the difference he made from not playing the week before to this one. Cripps stood up as well too. I would also say Sheasel, the Cheasel. No one is going to be beating. If the Cheasel keeps going the way he's going, no one is even going to get near him when it comes to the rising star. We all thought that Ashcroft would lead it. But did anyone really see what Harry Sheasel is bringing to the game? He had another 37 disposals. Like, this kid's in his 4th game and racking up 37 against a really good midfield in terms of Carlton. And he also had, you got to look at it, he had 444 metres gained and he went at 81% from his efficiency as well too. So absolutely sensational. Even picked up a few coaches' votes, I think, as well too. I think one guy that slid under the radar for a lot of teams, and I've watched him so far this year, Zach Fisher coming off halfback has been brilliant. He almost does a bit of a defensive tagging role in my humble opinion, but he is playing some cracking football at the moment. He also had another 28 disposals on the weekend, going at 78%, and spent 77% of the time on ground as well too. But he is just making a name for himself, and he's doing awesome stuff across the board. But Curnow kicks 6, Mackay kicks 4. When you're getting 10 out of your big boys, you really can't ask for much more than that. But I have to give a special shout out to he's the older statesman, Todd Goldstein. On the weekend, he was up against it. And he also had 33 hitouts as well too. So just, got to remember, they didn't play him round one. And since he's come back, he has been an absolute servant for that team. And he'll go down as a legend of the North Melbourne Football Club. So it's good to see him getting back into some awesome form as well. All right. Let's have a look at Adelaide and Fremantle. Can I ask you a question, ladies and gentlemen? Has Adelaide Football Club got the single best forward line in the league? What do you reckon? Okay. Well, I reckon that there's something there as well too, because you got Jordan Dawson playing great footy. You've got Walker doing what he needs to do. Rankin doing what he needs to do. You got Rochelle. You've also got Riley Thilthorpe as well too, going down and having a few as well too. They've just got a great forward line. I love what they see. I don't think Geelong has the great forward line. Rue Boys just mentioned that. I don't think Geelong has the best forward line. They've got the best forward, but Tommy Hawkins is a shell of his former self, and I don't think we're going to see him get back to normal. But they were really disappointing again, Freo. I think a lot of people picked Freo to win this game, but they were really disappointing in what they served up. Jordan Dawson was best on ground. Really disappointing for everything that we saw there. Where are Fremantle? Like, what do they stand for? This team made finals last year. I can't see them making finals. They haven't got better. They got rid of Rory Lobb because they thought that they had enough firepower with Fife down there. He isn't doing anything as a forward, so that's going to have to change. They've brought in Jackson. He played a little bit better, but, you've got to give this guy time to develop. But they don't move the ball fast when everybody else is, and they are going to miss the 8 when a lot of people have picked them to make it. Their best player was Alex Pearce and Michael Walters as well too. So it was great to see Walters finally getting some results on the scoreboard as well too. But yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Like, what are they going to do? How are they going to do it? Like I said, Walters kicked 3, but outside of that, it's not. Actually, didn't kick any. Wow, I'll take that back. I thought he kicked 3. No, he didn't kick any. Yeah, really disappointing for Fremantle, and it's going to be an interesting one for Justin Longmuir as well too, because if they miss finals after what they did last year, it's going to be a challenging one for them all. Okay, I actually picked them in the top 8. Craigie Wessels didn't pick him at all. Okay, I did pick this game though. Richmond versus the Western Bulldogs. All right, we've spoken about Brownlow favourites a little bit in the last couple of weeks. Now, you've got Clayton Oliver playing great football. I mentioned this guy a little bit earlier on, Jeremy Cameron playing sensational football. You've probably got Tim Kelly playing good football for West Coast, but they're not winning games, so that makes it a bit of a challenge. But Marcus Bontempelli's last couple of weeks have been nothing short of amazing. He led them to the win against Brisbane and then came out in a pretty average day weather-wise, and he was able to lead this team to a win against Richmond, which a lot of people picked for them not to do. I did pick the Bulldogs, so I'm very, very proud of that. Richmond are an interesting one. When they're full tilt, they can pretty much, I reckon, beat anybody. But at the moment, they're in a bit of trouble. And hear me out. We've got an aging list. We know about that. We know that Lynch is going to be out for weeks because of surgery. And we also know Nankervis is now going to be out. So they're going to be lacking Ruckman. They're going to be lacking their best forward. That means it leaves it all up to Jack. And I don't think Jack is that key major forward anymore. I don't know where they're going to kick their scores. I know there's going to be a lot more pressure on Dusty to perform. Is he going to be able to do it? I think what we saw on the weekend was vintage Dusty, but it's not Brownlow medal winning Dusty. It's not going to be 3 times Norm Smith Dusty. It's going to be he's better than a lot of other players playing on the ground, but he's not going to be dominant like he was. But the Bont was absolutely amazing. 25 disposals. Tim English was sensational as well. Probably picked up a lot of the coaches' votes as well. Tom Liberatore, this guy's had a bit of a challenged career, but for him to go and do what he did, he was like a pig in shit on the weekend. And he was magnificent. Like those type of conditions, people have said, who would dominate in a game like that? It was definitely going to be Tom Liberatore. Liam Baker and Daniel Rioli were the best for the Tigers as well too, but they were just too good, the doggies. And I want a little bit of a shout out as well to Oscar Baker. Came from the D's, went over the doggies to get some more opportunity and is holding his own. Had another 20 disposals on the weekend. Disposal efficiency was a little bit down, but got 435 metres gained. And you also got to remember it was wet weather football, so the disposal efficiency across the board was a little bit average. But another great win to the Western Bulldogs. Richmond, will they end up ninth man again this year? We don't know. But if it does, I reckon we'll be out for maybe dimmer if they do miss the finals. We'll never know. Things might happen. Stranger things have happened. I think one of the strangest things to happen right now is this club, the St Kilda Football Club. What a win against the Gold Coast. Now, I know a number of people picked Gold Coast because thinking St Kilda have to lose one. But Gold Coast have been so disappointing this year. Like, I think I picked them to scrape into 8th. That's how much confidence I had in Gold Coast. Not there at the moment. 21,000 packed Marvel Stadium for this one. And once again, if you go through the stats, if you go through the chart, it was St Kilda dominating across the board. Jack Higgins, like Snags Higgins. We've spoken about this guy so much over the years. Like, he is the barometer. He reminds me a lot of Papley from St Kilda. When he's up and firing, he is awesome. He's come out and kicked 5. He's had 7 shots on goal. He's had 22 disposals at 81% efficiency. It's 324 metres gained. He was everywhere on the weekend. Mitch Owens, who we spoke about a little bit earlier on, he kicked his 2 and had his 27. Jack Sinclair, with probably the greatest mullet in the league. Once again, 31 disposals, close to 700 metres gained. And that's just the way that they do it. They get the ball, they just run in, they put pressure on the ball carrier, they just run in streams, and they're creative as well too. Brad Crouch doing his thing in the middle, another 34 disposals. From the Gold Coast side of things, you're looking at the same names again. It's Tuke Miller, it's Noah Anderson. Ben King was a little bit average on the weekend again. He's still trying to get his way into it as well. Lockie Weller had 30. Tuke Miller had 32. Noah Anderson had 38, continuing his awesome season as well too. But I think Tommy's right. What are they going to do with their 4 line with Chol, Casbolt and King? It's not working at the moment. Do you need to throw one of those behind the ball? And if it is, which one would it be? Maybe Chol would be the one that you'd have to play behind the back. Do they need to make a change and move one of the guys? And then maybe you can't put a David Swallow onto the wing. Do you put someone like a Ben Long onto the wing? I don't know, but they don't have. Once it comes out of the middle, because they're able to extract it with Raul, Anderson, and Miller, we don't have anybody to run the ball out. Maybe Ben King to centre half back just to get him in behind the ball, and then he has to run way and not put the pressure on him to kick goals, because at the moment it's not working. But it's also going to put a lot more pressure on Stuart Dew. Is he going to survive the year if Gold Coast continue this way? Because we know a lot of players signed up to stay because he was going to be there. So do we pull the cart before the horse before the cart? I don't know. It is a really difficult one to look at. But it's going to be an interesting few weeks for the Gold Coast Suns and where this club goes. But we know that St Kilda are playing great games. They're playing great footy, and they're going to have a corker of a week this weekend at the Gather Round versus Collingwood. That is going to be an absolute ball terror. Sydney versus Port, the game of the year, I'd say so far. It was magnificent. It was awesome. The way it finished blew minds. Jamie Wallis would have been rocking hard, let's just say that, with the way that game finished. And Sydney supporters would have been absolutely shattered the way that happened. Chad Warner was BOG by the length of the Flemington Straight. 30 disposals, 500-odd metres gained, closely followed by Oliver Florence as well too, who had 890 metres gained as well too, 8 contested possessions. Zach Butters, Finlayson, everything that Finlayson's going with his wife back home, he was able to bring his mind to the game, 18 possessions, dominated around the ground, 10 contested possessions as part of that, and kicked 3 goals. And a game that we just like to see. Dersma was there, and the man of the moment, Alia. You know what? He only had 16 disposals for the game, But the best thing he's did was not actually possession laden. It was that punch over the line. Callum Mills leaves. Buddy Franklin goes away and doesn't block him to come through, stops it, and wins them the game too. The McCartan brothers, unfortunately, both been concussed as well, which is a real shame. But it was a cracking game across the night. It was close all night. It went back and forth. I don't think anybody picked Port Adelaide to win. I don't even the J-Dog would have picked Port Adelaide to win. But it was a game for the ages. Horn Francis had 18 disposals. Only went at 45 percent for his contested possessions averages there. But look, I tell you what, that's the type of game that Port Adelaide needed to win to give themselves some confidence. And Port will be pretty disappointed after their start 2-0 to lose to two, virtual top 8 teams. And yeah, it's going to be a tough one for them to swallow. So they can regroup this week, go to gather round, get on the road with the boys, and hopefully get another win. All right. Essendon versus GWS, my goodness gracious. Where are the Essendon supporters? I know Andy Bridge is on here tonight, as he always is, and he'll be absolutely flying when it comes to the Essendon Football Club. They are loving what they are doing at the moment. Are they exceeding expectations right now? In your thoughts, tell me on the chat, what do you reckon? Do you think that Essendon are exceeding the expectations? Or is this what we've expected from them for quite a long time? I know it sort of sits somewhere in the middle because I think they've had the list that's been capable, but they haven't been able to bring it. But since Brad Scott's come across, he's brought more of a defensive mindset. They played really great defensive football on the weekend, and they're moving the ball forward. Just didn't the package deliver on the weekend? An absolute barnstormer of a game by the package. He came out and kicked 4 goals, 10 shots at goal. He should have kicked. He should have been in the bags. He should have been in bags, but he wasn't. But that's what we expect from Stringer. That's what he's been hoping. And he is an absolute match turner. He would have got the three coaches' votes, or the 10 major coaches' votes from across the port. Zach Merritt was fantastic. Redmond, the Red Dog. Everyone saw the Red Dog after he kicked his goal from 50 as well too. Nick Martin was awesome. Draper was sensational. Larak as always. But once again, same names. Josh Kelly, Tom Green, Nick Haynes having to do it all for them. Tom Green had another 34. Josh Kelly had another 28 as well too. So great work by the Bombers. The thing is with the Bombers is now they've got to do that against top 8 teams. So it's okay to do that against teams that are very similar to where you're sitting on the ladder. Going to have to do it against top 8 teams. And one of those kicks off this week when they play the D's in Adelaide. And I think that is going to be a better game than a lot of people think it's going to be. I reckon it's going to be a close one. I personally do. But, hey, Essendon, it's great to have a strong Essendon, but you haven't won anything just yet. So just put the lid on it a little bit, but enjoy it for what it is. And GWS, I know they kept Josh Kelly. I know they kept Haynes. They had to keep Callum Ward, etc. But did they spend the money in the wrong way? It was brought up today on SEN. Did they spend the wrong money on those players when they should have kept Jeremy Cameron? Because they haven't really got a forward line, and he was killing it when he was down there. So, interesting one there. Interesting one there, my friends. All right. Couple of comments coming in. The D's are going down in Adelaide. Yes, we are going down in Adelaide by a plane. I think we're taking the plane, same as Essendon. So, yes, we're all going down to Adelaide. Actually, every team is going down to Adelaide this week, Andy Bridge. Great to see Lee Ali. Also, Redmond looks like he's going to the Suns in free agency. Tommy Roker has brought that one out, and the new coaches are killing it. The new old coaches are killing it. Or is it the old new coaches? The old people, you know what I mean. All right. West Coast versus Melbourne. Not going to talk too much about this game. Tori's just joined us at the perfect time. Tori Williams, the absolute superstar she is, as we have a quick chat about the Ds. That was sensational. It was a pretty good game up until halftime. I thought West Coast held their own. They were running the ball a lot better. They weren't slow. They were willing to attack. But it was just what Melbourne did, what Melbourne had to do. Okay? It took a while for them to get into the game, I would say. But once the usual suspects of Oliver, Petrarca, Tom McDonald coming back after a week off, back into the team, comes out and kicks 4. Bailey Fritz does what he needs to do. Keziah Pickett kicked 2 goals, 6. He could have been in bags as well too. He could have had a day out. But it was just possessions across the board. Oliver had 34, 297 metres gained. So a lot of handballs in that as well too. So setting up his teammates as well. But Tim Kelly, like I said at the start of the episode, he had a cracking game, 703 metres gained, 36 possessions, kicked a beautiful running goal in the last quarter, and they did what they had to do. The interesting thing to really come out of this is the form of Brodie Grundy. Now, I know Brodie Grundy was brought in as a second ruckman to Max Gorn, but he had 33 hit-outs himself. He also had, you've got to take this into account, 22 disposals. He did go up 54%, but 13 of those were contested and 6 score involvements. So he's not just making it difficult for other ruckmen around the league, he's making it really difficult for what is Melbourne going to do when he comes back. Are they going to play him as the primary ruckman and are they going to move Gorn down forward? I don't know. What would you do? Tommy Roker is saying Cozzie's going to the Crows. Maybe. I don't know how they're going to either pay for him. More importantly, they've got no draft picks to offer. So you're going to have to give us something. And at the moment, the Crows don't have anything. So they're going to have to do some wheeling and dealing to get Cozzy across too. But the D's locked in another win. Had a great percentage booster, which was what our supporters wanted to see. And another week rolls on, and like I said, Essendon this week. And the last game of the weekend, we touched on this one at the start of the episode. Geelong versus Hawthorn was a pretty good game up until halftime, and then it just went to shit for Hawthorn. Let's be honest. They went from chocolates to boiled lollies, and it really was the Jeremy Cameron show. What did Jeremy Cameron have? Just have a look at his stats. 12 score involvements, 10 shots at goal. He came out and kicked 7 goals. He went at 72% efficiency. What more do you want? And this guy's 6'4", 6'5"? Like, he's not supposed to be doing that. Mitch Duncan probably had his best game in a long time, 31 going at 80%. Max Holmes, another great game as well. You know, he's put the disappointment of not playing in that grand final behind him, and he's making it come out on the scoreboard as well too. And he's making it come out on his disposals as well. Will Day was brilliant for the Hawks. He's got a massive future. Unfortunately, he's got next couple of weeks off due to a sling tackle, and so he won't be there. And also Gary Rowan will be missing due to a sling tackle. So the AFL are really coming down on the sling tackle. I will notice one thing as well too, dodgy ruck contests. So what's your thought about the dodgy ruck contest? I don't know if anyone's seen this. I know Reece Downley had one last week, but there was another one this week concerning Mark Blitzarves, where he's not actually jumping up for the ruck. He's just running straight at the ruckman. And the opposing ruckman has just put his knee up to protect himself and ruck the ball. And, you know, Chris Scott, as he would normally do, has had a bit of a whinge about it. In my opinion, I don't see anything wrong with it because he has the option to contest the ball. And Blitzarves didn't contest the ball. He went straight at the play, straight at the ruckman. The other ruckman has the right to protect himself and put his knee up. So I can understand when they're talking about like that kung fu, pushing the knee out type of reaction. But I don't have an issue with it. Jump up at the ball. It's a ruck contest. And I can tell you now, if they go up to a straight throw up rather than a bounce, you're going to see more ruckmen not jumping at it and taking it like a basketball or a netball tip-off. And it's not what we want to see. I will say something, though. If you've been watching the bouncing in the middle of the ground over the season so far, it's been sensational. So I don't understand why we want to get rid of the bounce. If it goes a little bit skew, big deal. It's not a round ball. It's oval. It's going to bounce different. All right? So put up with it. I don't even think they should recall the bounce. If it goes skew, too bad, too sad. Call play on, in my humble opinion. Josh Ward was good. Luke Bruce, once again, kicked his usual 3. But the Cats, they were absolutely on fire. And that, my friends, is the scoreboard for round 4 before we kick in to gather round. All right. Before we go into 1 week at a time, I want to launch you all with a brand new little segment. Now, we've got player sponsors, all right? Every club has player sponsors. We've got some people on the broadcast who follow us who, you know, have offered to sponsor the show, and I appreciate everybody who's put their hand up. And if you do want to sponsor Lace Out, whether it's a segment, whether it's the show, just drop me a message in the Facebook chat or send me an email at laceoutpodcast@gmail.com, and we can have a chat about that. And I've had a couple of people roll out already, so I really appreciate that. But I thought, you know what? One thing I would like to do is I'd like to get behind a young fella, a young guy who's playing in the Coates League, which used to be the NAB League. And I want to follow him through the entire year, okay? And he is actually a friend of mine, and his son is playing. So his name is Jacob Grant, and he's playing for the Sandringham Dragons this year. He's 191 centimetre forward. He kicked 3-3 on the weekend. He's kicked 5 in the first 3 games. He's beating the best, and we're going to get around him. Lace Out, he's going to be Lace Out's own. Lace Out's Jacob Grant from the Sandringham Dragons. So I want everybody on the chat to get around him, and we're going to follow his progress week after week throughout the entire season leading into the draft. Because how good would it be if Lace Out can follow someone, they get drafted, and it wasn't because of the talent he showed on the park. It was because he was sponsored by the #1 non-club affiliated podcast. So I'm getting behind Jacob Grant. He is an absolute superstar, and I want everybody in the Lace Out family, all the Outlaws, to get behind him as well. I would also recommend, if you can get on the Coates League app, you can see the games, and I'll tell you what, see some of his highlights. He is special, number 29. So he's got the old KB jumper over in the for the Sandringham, Dandenong Stingrays. Absolute champ. Rightio. So Dandenong Stingrays, not the Sandringham Dragons, Dandenong Stingrays. Where will he go? I reckon he could be, at this stage, I'd probably, looking at what he has to offer, because he's a bit of a lanky utility. At 191, he's agile. They did some pre-season, just a bit of a heads up, they did some pre-season testing, so like the camp that they do at the end of the year, and he broke the record for the standing jump, okay, by about 11 centimetres. So the guy can play and the guy can jump. I reckon he could go, if he continues his form, he could go anywhere from early third, late second, but you just don't know what the draft is going to look like. Because if you think about a couple seasons ago, there was a guy by the name of Luke Jackson that Melbourne picked up with pick 3. And he plays in a very similar type of manner in terms of the flexibility, the lankiness, etc. So I'm behind him, and I want us all to be behind him as well too. So, yep, he's for Vicks only. And the reason why I'm saying Vicks is because I don't know much about the kids in the other states. So can he kick both feet? Yes, he can. So, Tommy, if you got anyone from Queensland that you can let us know about, throw it in on the chat. If anybody knows anyone from the Sample or the Waffle, the young kids, the Colts, let us know about it as well too. But we're getting behind Jacob Grant because he is an absolute little star. All right. We're at the last part of it. It's been a great episode. Lots of chat going on, lots of banter. I absolutely love it. But I want to have a look at 1 week at a time. Tommy Roker's also just mentioned Jed Walter is going to be an absolute star, and he could be going early as well too. So look out for him for the stars, okay? Craig Wessels over there in the US, he's just stated, I can safely say that we don't have a single player in our comp this year that will be draft eligible. Understandable. I think you need to be in this country before you can actually get drafted or introduced to the combine. But you never know. They might bring them over one way. Hey, we got Mason Cox over here. Anything can happen. All right. Let's have a look at Gather Round 1 week at a time. So on the chat, what game are you looking forward to this week? Round 5 of the AFL season. All games are going to be in Adelaide. I reckon, just looking at this, I'm really excited for, funny enough, the last game of the year. Last game of the round, which has been a big weekend. Collingwood versus St Kilda, 4:50. Like, we always talk about the graveyard shift. How good is that going to be? 4:50. You're sitting down with an early dinner, watching these two teams belt the living suitcases out of each other. It is going to be a corker. Essendon Melbourne, I think, is going to be a bit of a tight one. That's going to be the broadcast games, 4:10 p.m. Port Western Bulldogs is going to be an interesting one. Two teams had great wins on the weekend. I think that's going to be pretty good. Fremantle Gold Coast, whoever loses, their season is done. Finished Kaputski. And I even think the Thursday night game, Adelaide versus Carlton. What a game to kick it off. Adelaide-Carlton, Thursday, 7:40 p.m. at the Adelaide Oval. That is going to be a belter. Could you imagine if Adelaide win that? They are going to be right and ready for a top 8 finish. But if Carlton win it, they're going to be going 5 rounds without losing. So it is going to be a corker. It's going to be unique. It's going to be one of a kind. It is going to be sensational. So remember, if you're going to the MCG, if you're going to Marvel, there's not going to be anything on, okay? You can only watch the games on TV unless you're in Adelaide. Simples, all right? Simples. And one other thing that's simple is the end of this episode. It has been a cracker. The chat has been going absolutely non-stop berserk. So everybody who's joined us tonight, thank you very much. You're the reason why I do this show. And without you, we don't have one. More importantly, Tipped Out will be back as well too to give you my tips. And also we'll get those done tomorrow night, which is the Wednesday. So stay tuned for that. And more importantly, if you want to sponsor the show, shout out to me. If you want to be a guest host, shout out to me. Even if you just want something to ask me a question, anything whatsoever, put it on in the chat because the more content we get from you, the better off our show is going to be. It's as simple as that too. So on behalf of me, Chris Pepper, the host of the Lace Out podcast, I'm asking everybody out there, because the J-Dog's no longer here, one simple question, which is, how do you want your footy? That's right, lace out. Have a great listeners. Hope your team wins. Thanks for listening to the latest episode of Lace Out. Head over to iTunes and Spotify to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. And remember, join us every single Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time on our Facebook page with yours truly, Christopher Pepper, and the co-host with the most, Jamie Wallis, giving you your footy how you want it. Lace out.